You know, I've been thinking a lot about this strange feeling I used to have, and maybe you've felt it too. It's not a loud, obvious thing. It's more like a quiet hum in the background of your life, a subtle vibration deep in your soul that you can't quite put your finger on. It's this persistent sense that something is shifting inside you, something you've gotten so used to that it's almost become a part of the silence. It's like living next to train tracks. After a while, you stop hearing the trains, but your house still shakes. If you know what I'm talking about, if you feel that little tremor in your spirit right now, just drop a "I feel it," or even a simple 111 in the comments. It's not just for me, it's for you. It's like sending up a flare to the universe, letting it know you're awake and you're listening. And hey, if this touches you, please give it a like, so it can find its way to other people who might be feeling that same quiet shake. And subscribe so we can walk this path together. Trust me, you're not going crazy, and you're definitely not alone. This is the beginning of an awakening. I used to think these feelings were just moods, fleeting thoughts that would pass like clouds. But I've come to realize they are so much more than that. They are the quiet architects of our destiny, my friend, working behind the scenes in the shadows of our awareness. They don't show up announced, with a big clap of thunder or a dramatic flash of lightning. They don't hijack your thoughts all at once, or steal your sleep in a single, restless night. Their method is far more cunning, far more devastating in its patience. I see them now as a slow, creeping ivy, the kind you see on old brick buildings. At first, it's just a single, delicate vine, but silently, methodically, it wraps itself around the very foundation of your spirit. These subtle inner shifts don't need to knock on the front door of your consciousness. They just find the tiny, unnoticed cracks in your day-to-day life and seep right in. Slowly, day by day, they begin this process of spiritual erosion, a quiet hollowing out from the inside. This isn't a battle we fight out in the open with grand gestures, like chasing physical pleasures or climbing a corporate ladder. This is a quiet, internal war, and it's waged in the subtle realm of spiritual compromise. It's in the small concessions, the little "I'll do it tomorrows," that we end up giving away monumental pieces of our true selves. I remember reading something from the great explorer of the soul, Carl Jung, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. He said that anything we refuse to look at, anything we push down into the darkness of our minds, will eventually come back to us, but not as something we can choose to deal with. It comes back as our fate. Just let that sink in for a minute. It's a terrifying thought, isn't it? The idea that the parts of us we're too scared to face aren't just sleeping dogs. They're awake, and they're actively weaving the very threads of our future. And here's the thing about this fate that Jung talked about. It rarely shows up as a big, dramatic event. It's not usually a single, life-shattering moment where you can say, "Yep, that was it. That's when everything changed." Honestly, I wish it were that simple. No, it's far more insidious. It creeps in disguised as a quiet, harmless little habit, a pattern of thinking, a way of being that you just sort of fall into. In our world today, we're trained to look out for the big, obvious dangers. We're told to fear things like addiction or destructive behaviors that can poison the mind and disconnect us from real, soulful connection. And we should be wary of those things, absolutely. They can cloud our ability to see the divine beauty in true intimacy. But I have to tell you, from my own journey, I've learned that there are forces at play inside of us that are infinitely more subtle, but in the long run, far more destructive. They are the silent assassins of the spirit. They're quieter, yes, but their roots go deeper, burrowing right into the foundation of your soul. So what are these forces? They're the mental habits we let run on autopilot, the negative thought loops that become our daily soundtrack. They are the thieves that sneak in and steal your faith in yourself, your belief in your own divine spark. They're like a fine gray dust that slowly settles on the vibrant, colorful painting of the person you are meant to become. Day by day, that dust gets thicker, blurring the colors, softening the sharp, beautiful edges, until one day you look up and the masterpiece you once envisioned is just a faded, unrecognizable blur. These quiet little destroyers, these habits of thought, they don't make the evening news. You won't see them trending on social media or becoming the focus of some 30-day challenge. And why is that? Because frankly, they're not sexy enough. There's no quick fix, no instant gratification in the hard, quiet work of confronting a deep-seated belief that you aren't worthy of your dreams, or in untangling the stubborn, thorny mess of procrastination that has you pinned to the ground. They just aren't attractive enough for the world to turn into a spectacle. And that, my friend, is exactly what makes them so damn dangerous. They thrive in the dark corners of our neglect. I once read that Carl Jung believed that when a person loses faith in the light of their own future, when they can no longer see a path ahead that's lit up by hope and possibility, they begin to be consumed by what he called the darkness of old age. And he wasn't talking about getting wrinkles or gray hair. He was talking about a spiritual decay, a slow dimming of the soul's light. And the biggest, darkest shadow that casts that spell isn't the fear of failure. I think a lot of us believe that's our greatest enemy. But I've learned the hard way that the most lethal poison, the one that works most slowly and silently, is the quiet, creeping belief that nothing is worth the effort anymore. It's the heavy, damp blanket of cynicism. And this cynicism, this heavy cloak of "I've seen it all before," that so many of us wrap around ourselves for protection, it doesn't come from wisdom. Please, don't ever mistake your weariness for enlightenment. True wisdom is vibrant, it's alive, it's curious, it's full of a divine, creative energy. No, this kind of cynicism is born from something else entirely. It's born from our unhealed wounds. It's the sticky, bitter residue left behind by every disappointment we've ever had to swallow. It's the ghost of every single promise we've ever broken to ourselves. Just think about it for a second. Every time you set a goal, got excited about it, and then let it fizzle out. Every time you looked in the mirror and promised yourself, "This is it, I'm going to change," only to fall back into the same old, comfortable, destructive patterns. In those moments, you weren't just losing time. You were losing something infinitely more precious. You were losing faith in the power of your own word. You were chipping away at the sacred foundation of your own integrity. Little by little, with each broken promise, you were training your own subconscious mind not to trust you. And when you stop believing your own words, you eventually stop believing in the possibility of any new beginning at all. You stop trusting that others will keep their promises, because you know you can't even keep your own. But the real tragedy, the part that truly breaks my heart, is that you stop believing that you, yourself, have the power to change. And that belief, my friend, or the devastating lack of it, becomes the most powerful force in your life. It dictates everything. You start putting off the smallest things, whispering to yourself that corrosive little lie, "What's the point? It's not going to matter anyway." This slow erosion of self-trust, it creates this painful, isolating world for you. Have you ever noticed this? Suddenly, you find yourself feeling really uncomfortable around people who are disciplined, people who are out there, actually doing the work and building the life they want. Their energy feels almost like an accusation. Their focus becomes this harsh, bright spotlight on your own neglect, and it's just too much to handle. They become a living, breathing mirror, reflecting back everything you've decided to ignore about yourself. And damn, that reflection can be painful to look at. So, what do? We do what we're wired to do. We seek comfort. We start, often without even realizing it, to gravitate towards other people who feel just as stuck as we do. We find those who carry that same spiritual fatigue, who speak that same tired language of, "It's too hard, and it's not fair." And we gather together, not to lift each other up, not to challenge each other to grow, but to find a collective excuse to stay exactly where we are. We create this cozy little echo chamber of stagnation. Our relationships, the very things that should be inspiring us, become the walls of our prison, reinforcing the belief that this is just how it is. Jung had a chilling name for this. He called it a collective infection by the shadow. It's that point where you stop being guided by your own inner compass, your own divine will, and you just let yourself get swept away by the unconscious, downward pull of collective resignation. But here's the absolute kicker. Here's the most brilliant, most terrifying trick the shadow ever plays. You still think you're trying. That's what's so crazy about it. You haven't consciously thrown in the towel. You're still making the plans, reading the books, watching the videos. You're imagining success. You're painting these elaborate, beautiful pictures in your mind of a future where you're healed, you're whole, you're living your purpose. But in the cold, hard light of reality, you haven't taken a single, concrete, scary step outside of your comfort zone. This, my friend, is where the great myth of good intentions shows its true colors as one of the most powerful escape hatches the human mind has ever invented. You trick yourself into thinking that because you can imagine the goal, because you can conjure up the feeling of what it would be like to achieve it, you're somehow already close to it. It's a profound and dangerous delusion. What's really happening is that this visualization, when it's not anchored by real, committed action, just gives your brain a little hit of dopamine. It's a chemical pat on the back. It creates the temporary, fleeting illusion of progress, while true, embodied, life-altering action remains completely off the table. Jung called this identification with the ideal image. It's a state where you start to feel good about yourself, not because of what you've done, but because you think about doing good things. And this identification, if you don't catch it, becomes a beautiful, gilded prison for your soul. You start living more and more inside your head than you do out in the real world. When someone asks what you're up to, you can confidently say, "Oh, I have big plans." And when you fail to act on them, you have the perfect built-in excuse. "Well, at least my intentions were good." But as Jung so powerfully reminded us, true awakening doesn't come from imagining the light. It comes from having the courage to make the darkness conscious. It's not about your intentions. It's about having the raw, gut-wrenching courage to finally look at what you've been avoiding: your procrastination, your fear, and your heartbreaking lack of discipline. It's a strange paradox, isn't it? When we start to lose faith in ourselves, you'd think we'd want to be alone, to go inward and figure things out. But usually, the opposite happens. We unconsciously start clinging to other people who are carrying that same heavy weight, that same story of defeat. It's not a conscious choice, it's a vibrational thing. It's a quiet, unspoken agreement between souls who are just looking for a reason not to change. We get together and we validate each other's excuses. We talk about how hard life is, how not everyone can make it, how trying and failing is just a form of self-torture. And these conversations, they don't heal a damn thing. They just pour concrete over our fears. They become this collective justification for staying stuck. Jung would call this a psychological infection, spreading through the collective unconscious. It's that moment when we completely dissolve our individuality into the group, just to avoid the terrifying responsibility of our own uniqueness, our own power, our own light. And if you stay in that environment long enough, your doubt stops being just a feeling. It becomes your entire worldview. You no longer see yourself as a person who is disappointed. You see the world as a disappointing place. You no longer think you're just putting off action. You start to believe that taking action itself is foolish. And just like that, so quietly you don't even notice, you build this invisible suit of armor around your heart. The crest on this armor reads, "I know, I've tried, nothing works." But that's not knowledge, my friend. It's not wisdom. It's an empty shell built from the dust of unprocessed pain. It's not a lesson learned. It's a wall you've built, a wall so thick that no new idea, no new possibility, no ray of divine light can get through. So when you see someone else who is growing, trying, changing, you give this little, knowing, cynical smile. Oh, they'll learn. You tell yourself, they'll find out how it really is. But what is really? Is it the infinite, possibility-filled reality of the universe? Or is it the tiny, cramped reality you accepted because you were too tired and too scared to fight for anything more? Jung said it best. To become a whole person, you have to break free from the collective hypnosis. But breaking free doesn't mean you have to reject the world. It means you have to wake up while others are still sleeping. It means you have to be the one to protect that tiny, sacred flame of your own will, especially when the cold, bitter winds of collective doubt are howling all around you. And I'm not going to lie to you, that is one of the hardest things you will ever have to do. We are wired for belonging. We crave it. And if the price of that belonging is to quietly put your dreams away, it's a price many people are willing to pay in silence. They just stop talking about what they really want and start talking more about why it's not worth wanting in the first place. They become these armchair experts on risk, analyzing every possible negative outcome, but when it comes to taking the smallest, simplest step, they are like terrified children. Why? Because somewhere along the way, they learn to equate failure with shame. And when you do that, every single step forward feels like you're risking public humiliation. So, it's easier to choose the silence of procrastination over the potential chaos of a new beginning. But here's what Jung would tell you, and what I've had to learn myself. That constant state of waiting, of preparing, that is the real failure. It's the failure of the soul to show up for its own life. And when that happens, your shadow, that collection of all your fears and doubts, stops being something you can work with. It takes over. It starts running the show. A person in that state can still function. They can go to work, they can make small talk, they can even laugh. But they've lost contact with that core part of themselves that is capable of real, divine growth. They start living like everything is already written in stone, as if they are just a character in a story that's already over. A failure hiding behind a mask of cynical wisdom. And once that story becomes your identity, you will defend it with everything you have. You'll push away anyone who suggests change. You'll criticize those who are succeeding, and you'll secretly pray that no one around you has a breakthrough, because their light would force you to see the truth you've spent years running from. In that defensive crouch, you forget the most important thing Jung ever taught us. The shadow only has power over you when you refuse to look at it. You can't destroy it, but you can weaken its hold on you, just by having the courage to see it for what it is. And where does it live? It lives in the people you choose to surround yourself with. It lives in the tired, old conversations you have over and over again. And it lives in that long, quiet, deafening silence between the last time you took a real chance and the next one you keep putting off. So now you might be asking yourself, if this is all true, why does it feel like I'm trying so hard, even when I'm standing still? That, my friend, is the most subtle trap of all. It's a twisted kind of self-delusion, where your intentions start to feel like actions. It's a place where you get more satisfaction from planning to live than from actually living. Modern psychology has a fancy name for a false dopaminergic reward, but Jung saw this spiritual loophole long ago. It's what happens when your mind falls so in love with the idea of who you could be that it starts to believe that just thinking about it is a step forward. Every time you imagine writing that book, or starting that business, or having that difficult conversation, your brain gives you a little hit of pleasure, a little chemical reward, as if you've already done something. But let me be clear, because this is the most important part. That's not you growing. That's just your ego getting a nice, comforting stroke. And this creates a vicious, insidious cycle. The more you think, the more you feel like you're doing something. The more you feel like you're doing something, the less you actually do. You end up admiring the blueprint instead of ever breaking ground on the building. So you go back to the drawing board for the 100th time. A new plan, a new schedule, a new strategy. But when the moment comes to actually lay the first brick, that old, familiar voice whispers, "Not yet." The conditions aren't perfect yet. Nothing will kill your self-worth faster than constantly breaking promises to yourself about the things that matter most to you. Every time you say later, you're sending a direct message to the deepest part of your being. And that message is, I can't be trusted. And when that message gets sent enough times, you stop believing in your own intentions altogether, because you know, in that quiet place deep inside, that you'll probably just postpone it again. So why do we do this to ourselves? Because planning is safe. Imagination doesn't get you rejected. Your thoughts can't be judged by anyone. It's a world of absolute safety. But as Jung said, there is no awakening without pain. Most of us try to avoid that pain by escaping into the safe, controllable world of our imagination. A world where there's no risk and no failure. But that also means there's no real success. You're not living your life. You're living a mental draft of it. And this leads to the most dangerous belief of all. The belief that if you just prepare enough, If you just wait long enough, one day you'll wake up and you'll be ready. You'll be fearless, confident, and perfect. But that day is a fantasy. It will never come. That perfect version of you doesn't exist. The lie you've been telling yourself is that safety is a prerequisite for starting. And that is the most beautiful, most tragic lie the shadow will ever whisper to you in the quiet of the morning. A true spiritual master like Jung would never tell you to wait until you're not afraid. He would tell you that the only way to break the spell of illusion is with real, messy, imperfect action. Because it's only when you're in motion that you realize you are not the idealized image in your head. You are the one who has the courage to live, even with the uncertainty. That, right there, is the first step in the sacred process of individuation, of becoming who you truly are. Not who others think you should be, not the perfect version your ego fantasizes about, but the real, evolving person you are, in the process of becoming, one messy step at a time. And that journey always requires you to leave the safe harbor you've so neatly labeled preparation. When you spend too long in that harbor, what you lose isn't just time. It's your sense of self-worth. Every time you break a promise to yourself, a part of you is watching. And after enough broken promises, you don't need anyone else to doubt you. You've become your own biggest skeptic. Jung said the shadow isn't just what we hide from others. It's what we deny in our own hearts. And that deep, eroded self-esteem is a huge part of that shadow. Unlike fear, which can be obvious, this lack of self-trust works silently, secretly. It robs you of the courage to even dream big anymore. You stop rejecting opportunities because you're lazy. You start rejecting them because, deep down, you don't believe they're meant for you. I knew a man once, Adrian, who wanted to be a writer more than anything. For years, he did nothing but prepare. He read every book on technique. He analyzed plot structures. He had notebooks full of outlines for 3 different novels. But he never finished a single chapter. When anyone asked, he'd say, "I'm still getting ready. I'm not there yet." But the truth was simpler and sadder. Adrian didn't believe he deserved to be a writer. The thought of finishing, of actually putting his work out there, was terrifying. A voice in his head would say, "Nobody will care. And if you fail, you'll lose the one dream that makes you feel special." So that unfulfilled dream became his last safe place. As long as he was preparing, the dream was still alive. If he tried and failed, the illusion would shatter. He wasn't escaping failure. He was escaping the loss of the one thing that gave his life a sense of meaning. As Jung warned, if you don't face your shadow, it will run your life, and you will call it fate. Adrian wasn't missing talent or opportunity. He was paralyzed by a profound lack of self-trust. And here's the ultimate paradox. It's the very lack of action that prevents us from ever rebuilding that trust. This creates a self-perpetuating loop. The more you wait to feel ready, the longer you delay. The longer you delay, the less you believe in yourself. The less you believe in yourself, the more helpless you feel. And if you stay in that loop long enough, you mistake it for your personality. You stop saying, "I put off writing," and you start saying, "I'm just not a disciplined person." You stop saying, "I'm afraid of what people will think," and you start saying, "That's just not for me." And those stories, they become your identity. And once something is your identity, trying to change, it feels like you're trying to change the very essence of who you are. Jung called this identification with the shadow. It's when you can no longer tell the difference between who you are and what you're afraid of. This is the crossroads of every psychological journey. You either awaken and start the painful but beautiful process of separating yourself from that protective shell you built around your old wounds, or you stay trapped in it forever. It never happens all at once. It always begins with one tiny, almost imperceptible moment. The moment you decide to accept your own stagnation as normal. From that moment on, your biggest dreams start to get quieter. They start to fade not because you don't want them anymore, but because you can't bear the thought of the shame you'll feel if you try, and they don't come true. But here's the miracle I've seen in my own life, and in the lives of so many others. Sometimes, all it takes is one small step to change everything. You don't need the perfect plan. You don't have to be the best, most healed version of yourself to start. You don't need absolute certainty or some bolt of lightning motivation. just one movement. One tiny action, so small no one else in the world might even notice it. But for you, it is the signal of a new beginning. Because true liberation doesn't arrive when you finally feel strong enough. It arrives when you finally accept that you'll never be completely ready, and you find the courage to move forward anyway. Jung taught that the path to enlightenment leads through the darkness, not around it. So don't wait for the fear to go away. Learn to walk with it. Don't wait to feel confident. Take small actions that rebuild your trust in yourself, step by painstaking step. Because self-belief isn't something you're given before you start. It's something you forge in the fire of your own concrete, repeatable actions, done without applause or fanfare. It might be writing just 100 words. It might be finally saying no to a conversation that drains you. It might be waking up on time 3 days in a row. They seem like small things, but these are the sacred details that rebuild the relationship with yourself. And that relationship is the foundation for every real change you will ever make. Jung believed that the process of becoming a whole person individuation means you have to go beyond the old, safe image you had of yourself, an image built on fear and past failures. And this means you cannot wait for inspiration to strike. You must learn to accept discomfort. You must welcome the possibility of mockery, of doubt, of looks from people who don't get it. Because it is only in that sacred confrontation with the unknown that something new can be born. A true individual isn't created by avoiding pain, but by having the willingness to walk right into it, all while holding on to the will to live and to grow. The ego, Jung said, wants protection. The soul wants growth, and those two paths rarely overlap. So if you keep waiting until it doesn't hurt anymore, you will never grow. Your soul doesn't need an escape plan. It needs your presence. It needs your decision. So eventually, you have to choose. Will you continue to live as a version of yourself that avoids all discomfort? Or will you choose to be someone real, someone who might get hurt, but who, because of that, truly, magnificently, develops? The final lesson is this: stop deceiving yourself with one more plan, one more book, one more conversation. Start with the smallest possible action, and do not judge it by its result. Judge it by the courage it awakens within you. Every time you do that, you are rewriting your inner story. And if you do it enough, one day you'll wake up and you won't have to imagine being a stronger version of yourself anymore. You'll just be living it, not through perfection, but through honesty. Not through certainty, but through courage, built one small step at a time. This is the path. No one can walk it for you, but once you begin, no one can ever take it away from you.